Explore Hadrian's Wall with us as we walk coast to coast in 8 days. Today, we walk from wall houses to the Roman fort at Chester's. After a relaxing night at the Robin Hood Inn, we made our way down to the pub in the morning where they had sandwiches for us. A lot of the stops on Hadrian's Wall will provide a lunch for you. This is great since there aren't many restaurants or stores along the trail. We took some time to get our second Hadrian's Wall stamp in our passport book. As I mentioned in a previous video, these booklets are a fun and dorky thing that you can get, and the stamps mark your path along the wall. From there, we were out into the countryside. For the first 2 days of our trip, we didn't see a lot of Roman history. We saw the fort at Segedunum in Wall's End, and we saw a stretch of wall in Heddon on the Wall, but otherwise it's been a relatively Roman-free hike along this path. If you've been wondering when we're going to get into the Roman ruins, today's video is the start of several days of our Roman experience. However, all the Roman stuff is at the end of this video, and this first part is just us wandering through the countryside, having another lovely day in the British landscape as we wander from Newcastle into the central part of England. Most of Hadrian's Wall passes through local farm fields, and we spent a lot of time in proximity with various animals. That was kind of nice and kind of charming, and also a little bit scary. In the later days of our trip, we would actually have a bull lower its horns on us. Today, it's a tiny horse. For the most part, the cute horses and sheep were a great distraction as we walk. As I mentioned before, my goal with these videos is to provide a semblance of the experience we had walking from Newcastle to Carlisle. It's not really a history video. Instead, it's an opportunity for you to spend a few minutes hiking across England and enjoying the countryside with us. One of the things that was pretty fascinating about this trip is how old the Hadrian's Wall path actually is. The official version is only sort of maintained in the last 20 or 30 years, but a lot of these stone walls between the farmers' fields actually have stone steps built into them from the history of people doing what we did and traveling along the edge of the wall. We're coming up on the intersection of the military road to our right with Deer Street, the major Roman north-south road in the area. Nothing's left now, but there would have been a huge gate at this intersection, and it would have been the major portal heading north out of the empire into Caledonia, now Scotland, north of the wall. Nowadays, there's an old English tea house here where we decided to stop for a break, get some tea, and have a little lunch. After our tea, we're back on the trail. This guy wanted to talk about GoPros, and after a quick chat, we hit a detour, which took us just a little bit out of the way. I have to say that the detour was actually one of my favorite parts of the day because we ended up in this wooded area which was covered in blueberries. I guess in England they're called windberries, or maybe that's just a slightly different species. Either way, as I mentioned before, I love free, healthy snacks provided by nature, and we lost a fair amount of time on our trip as Nicole and I stopped over and over again to grab some blueberries. We probably could have spent the whole day here just eating free berries, but eventually it was time to move on and get back on the trail. In a moment, you'll see a group of hikers coming in the other direction who, for some reason, seemed to think it was weird that we were eating all these fresh berries. That kind of prompted us to get moving again. I know that An American Werewolf in London was filmed in Wales, but this countryside really gives me the feeling of that movie. As a filmmaker, I could see all sorts of possibilities in this landscape. After lunch, Nicole gave us another one of her fun little trail dances, and then we were moving again. From time to time, you'll see the ditch, known as the vallum, that the Romans built as an extra line of protection on the wall. For a lot of this trip, we were walking on a hump of dirt and rocks that's actually the remnants of the foundation of Hadrian's wall. To our right, the lumps that we keep stopping to take photos of are ruins of forts and towers and other portions of Hadrian's wall. And to the left, this ditch, again, is the vallum, which we'll keep following for the whole day. Even though you can't see the wall, we know we're on it as long as we can see the vallum. Every 100 meters or so, we would hit one of these gates between fields and find an innovative array of latches and hitches and ways to lock these gates. It didn't seem like any two gates were designed the same, and there was a lot of strange innovation in the local construction. Some had latches or hooks or other strange locking systems. It was kind of fascinating. Here we find ourselves on another stretch of Hadrian's wall. The plaque tells the story of a local historian in the 1800s who came on a farmer taking away the stone from the wall and asked him to stop, which is kind of amazing that we have this stretch of Hadrian's wall preserved simply because of a coincidence that someone asked a farmer not to take the stone. So much of this history is just preserved by accident. These country lanes take us down to a main road. We zigzag through the countryside, and in the distance you can see the town of Challerton, which is where we're headed. But first, we have to take a right and head up into this farm field where there's another beautiful stretch of Hadrian's wall. At this point in our journey, we were really excited to see more Roman ruins. This portion of the wall runs down over the hill and towards the river, and there's a Roman turret here that would have guarded the northern side of the river at Challerton. Soon, we'll cross the river and head to the Roman fort that guarded the bridge and the south side of the crossing. We take a moment to check out the turret, and I can't help but wonder what it would be like to be a Roman soldier living in this tiny, tall tower, looking north and watching the countryside for Druids and Picts and Celts. We cross the River Tyne and head to the local inn for a pint. As with most of our days on the trail, we've arrived in town too early to check into our hotel. So, we enjoy a pint or two and do a little wandering, and that takes us back out onto the road feeling rested. We're on to our last stop for the day, the museum and fort at Chester's. Salernum is the Roman name of this beautifully preserved fort on the grounds of the Chester's mansion. In the 1800s, the landlord became obsessed with the Roman archaeology and has built a beautiful museum full of Roman artifacts. It's a very large fort that would have housed over 1,000 men. Along the wall, the Romans had turrets about every quarter mile and a mile castle every mile, which was a Roman mile, slightly shorter than a modern mile. That means there are about 84 mile castles along Hadrian's wall. These huge forts of several thousand men would serve a whole area, and there were only a few of them along Hadrian's wall. This fort, of course, guards the bridge and river crossing that I mentioned earlier. We're down in the bathhouses along the river where the men would have maintained themselves and relaxed. The bathhouses are incredibly well preserved, and you can even see the nooks where the soldiers would store their clothes, and the raised floor for the underfloor heating. Down here by the water, the bridge is gone, but there's a nice view of where it would have been. Just across the river is that turret we saw earlier. We had plenty of time to explore, and Chester's is a huge, well-preserved fort. It really gives you the feeling of what it was like for a soldier to live on the frontier, surrounded by thousands of men and horses and military life. As we wander around, you can see the columns for the underfloor heating and the turrets for the gates, and there's even a vault where the commander would have kept the soldiers' pay. After exploring Chester's, we were back through the gift shop and on to Hall Barns, a lovely B&B where we had a fantastic dinner and a good rest. Time to check our maps for the next day on the trail. Check back soon as we walk from Chester's to Once Brewed.